Sweet.
Let's go.
Let's go, bro. Cool, man. We're back again. I didn't think we'd be back so soon, to be honest.
It's good, man.
Yeah, I had this idea of doing all of these different guests and then to come back to you, but it's back to back.
It's good. I like it.
Yeah, man. What's been happening as of recently?
I guess it's more of the same, but always trying to add a new layer of awareness on the same thing. So I guess it's never the same, but but it is at the same time. Yeah, so just doing the same old, trying to keep pushing the limits of my own consciousness and my belief systems, and also live with a certain amount of surrender and kind of not push that envelope at the same time. So pushing and releasing and trying to find that nice balance, I guess. Yeah, what about you, bro?
Yeah, I'd say similar. Do you mean not push the surrender too much? Is that what you're...
Nah, I think with me, I can get a little bit caught up in almost that growth mindset where I'm so focused on future events that I miss the present. So it's trying to expand, trying to grow, trying to get better, but also slow that down and enjoy the moment, enjoy where it is here.
Yeah, I feel that. I think since the last time we sat down together on the pod, there's been a lot that's come up for me, which has been around being at a certain standard and setting a certain standard for myself that I think is more so a level of perfection that isn't attainable. And that's where I've gotten caught up. And I feel in releasing that, there's been a huge weight off my shoulders to just see that and just how it doesn't serve me. And it's crazy to think that we can kind of live our whole life a certain way, only for it to not have been the most, I guess, tactical way that we can approach things.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I think if we can understand that it's really important to have something to focus on, so a true north that's pulling you in a forward direction, but you need to realize that thing that you're working towards, you will never get to it. It's you've got the goal here and you get to it and now it's there, and you get to it and now it's there. So it's when you come at life, if you're the type of guy who's very masculine minded and you're always driven on purpose and your consciousness is constantly wanting to expand, then there definitely needs to be an awareness around it's a never-ending process, because when you can just accept that and understand that road of self-growth never ends, you will die on that road being, unfulfilled, then I think that brings about a certain level of peace, so that you can just say, I'm going to keep doing this, but it's cool if it never ends. I know that no matter how far along I am this journey, it will never be enough, and that's okay. And I think that's the surrender. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, man. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think for myself, I've realized that I had this kind of awareness that came through to me, which was somewhere in my childhood, I looked around to the people that loved me and supported me to see if I was doing things right or doing things the right way. Yeah. And it was this awareness that I had recently that was I'm still doing that in so many ways and so many interactions, and circumstances where that has just been like lingering. And it's just really interesting because I feel like, you know, you can develop social skills and a level of confidence, but there can always be this like underlying part that, yeah, I feel like a lot of people struggle with it. Like we're very hesitant to kind of just show our full self and that just be enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a really...
I agree. I think it's whenever someone does show up as their true, authentic self, people love it. Like, and when people do it, it gives permission to others around them to do it also. And I believe that when you unapologetically express yourself in the exact way that you want, and that's your truth, that captivates people. Because 95%, I believe, of the world can't do that. But that is living a less egoic life than someone who... I did a story about this on Instagram today, and I believe that if you want to act a certain way, which is your true self, just something in you that desires to be heard or seen or understood, but you do not express that true version of yourself because of fear of judgment and for fear of how you'll be perceived, that is a lot more egoic, because what you're doing is you're protecting your self-identity at all cost rather than just being yourself. So I believe the person who puts it out there and is themselves and says what they truly believe, despite the consequences, is completely out of their own way. They're not held back by the way others perceive them. And oftentimes people perceive those people as the ones with the big ego and the ones with a lot to say. But I believe you're living in your ego far more when you close yourself off and protect your identity at all cost. I think that's far more reaffirming of all the different layers of your ego.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, I think the line was quite blurry for me for what authenticity even is and what it means. But I think what I'm seeing more clearly now is that it's like just the absence of, I guess, this egoic layer, whether that be I'm amazing or I'm not enough. Like it's
There's
like
polarity in the ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's almost like authenticity to me is actually just whether someone's comfortable in their own skin.
That's what I believe too.
Yeah.
It's you can feel when someone's authentic too. Authentic people don't necessarily run off a need to be approved of. They do what they do and they're happy with it, whether no one else is. It doesn't bother them. Inauthentic people tend to take on more like chameleon traits where they will say things and do things in order to please the different groups of people that they spend time with. And that's why you'll find some of your friends even, they'll only invite you to things in almost like a controlled environment where they'll only bring you along if it's with a certain group of friends, and then they'll keep another group of friends for themselves, and they'll have all these different groups of friends because in each different friendship circle they have a different identity and they fear to bring someone from a different group into the other group because they know they'll be exposed. So their whole life is about controlling environments in which they have some control over protecting their identity. And that's when I think you meet a free person, is whoever you talk to, they'll give you the same the same answer of, you know, what their character is like. So I think that's what I try to be like. Just, I would hope that whoever knows me views me as the same person no matter who I'm around. I think that's what we can strive for in that department.
But yeah, that's a really good distinction. I really like that. It's cool. Yeah, I think there's like, I mean, we certainly weren't taught any of these like ideas when we were growing up.
No,
and
man.
it's really interesting. Like I feel into what you were saying. Yeah, so much, I guess, like living the life that I've even lived as a scooter rider, and then being in that circle for so long and then branching out of it, it really was like in my face to see that. And
the sad thing is people do it with like their own family. It's like you'll be a grown adult and you'll hide drugs from your parents or your own partner, or you see like grown men lying to their partners about where they are at the pub. It's just like, who cares? Who cares what your parents think if you're doing drugs? Just that's actually what you are. That's who you are. Yeah, I just believe when you change that, when you try and manipulate the way people view you, you're placing so much power in their hands. You're essentially saying, I value more the way you view me than I do myself. And it's a bit of a sad existence, I reckon, when you come to that place.
Yeah. So what, was there a switch for you that you came to like understand what you've just explained? Like, was there a turning point?
I think when you grow up in organised religion and everything is kind of how the congregation views you or how you're seen, and you live this life almost keeping up appearances, when you actually just make an agreement and you're like, enough, that's not what I really am, and you just start living in accordance with who you are and owning all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, that's freedom. That's true freedom. And once you experience freedom, you can never go back. And it's a very, I believe that's a very alpha male way to live, is you decide what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and you go out into the world and do it for everyone to see, and you don't hold back because of the consequences. You just live accordingly to your code. And yeah, I believe if you are going to live that, you know, that upfront life, I do believe you need to be governed by some form of moral code that that guides that openness.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I think just in my experience, like, I guess like the most standard example I could give is when you, at some point in your life, you know, you're talking about other people and gossiping and there's drama. And then I feel like once you come to a certain level of awareness, then that act or that behavior just feels really disgusting.
Yeah.
And I think that translates into like, when it comes to like authenticity and living your truth, it's almost like you can't run away from that because that feeling is so strong. And I think you end up, I don't know, maybe like what that process is, and maybe it's more organic than anything else. But yeah, it is just like an interesting layer, like, because I think for myself, I would have thought like, well, how do you get here? But I think it's actually it is almost like a natural process in many ways. Like,
yeah, it's a natural process for people that are wanting to better themselves. But for some people, gossip will feel natural for their whole life. But oftentimes when you're speaking about other people, it's just because you're not ready to speak about yourself, and other people are just a distraction. But normally what you're talking about in others is generally what you wish you could do, or you're just highlighting an aspect of yourself that you hate in them. And that's why you're such an expert on it. And that's why you know everything about it, is because you're literally just talking about yourself, but through the eyes of the other person almost. So, yeah. Also, it's good to, it's so easy to fall into gossip because you get to talk about things that have already happened. You get to talk about events. And it's never ending. It's just your opinion based off your level of awareness. But when you're with your mates and you're talking about ideas, that takes like a certain level of person to keep that conversation going, because it's you're using the present moment. You know what I mean? To come up with your conversations. You're not dwelling on past events. So I reckon it's a good indication when you're with people. Almost, do you dream together, and do you talk about what your potential could be, or do you talk about other people that are going and doing it? And I think that's always the case. There's the guys in the arena who are just going for it and giving it a try, and then there's the people in the grandstand always giving their opinion while never stepping their foot in the arena. So I think it's very important not to speak on things that you haven't done yourself. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to learn, is only to speak from personal experience. Yeah, man. I think that's where it's at for all of us.
Yeah, I feel that, man.
Yeah,
it's really interesting. I think just with all the layers of judgment that seem to be, I can't help but just feel it, you know, and there's this level of judgment that just coexists almost everywhere you go. And
fully.
Yeah, I feel quite sensitive to that, and you know, I'm learning to separate myself from that, but I feel like it can also be quite contagious, and I'm still will catch myself out and have to rewrite the story that.
Yeah. Just get busy doing your own thing. When you get busy doing your own thing, you don't really care what someone else is doing because you're busy doing your own thing. I think the people that gossip the most don't ever have anything worthwhile going on in their life. And that's why normally the people that they're gossiping about are completely unaware because they're so concerned with what they're doing. And I think it's really good, like you said before, it's just good to become sensitive to that or become aware of that, because all of us are going to gossip at some point and you are going to slip up. But when you try and become aware of it as you start, you can pull back and just say, all right, this is a good indication. It's not a bad thing. It's just an indication that I don't have much going on in my life because I've got way too much time concerning myself with other people's business. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all good, man. It's all a process. You know.
It is, yeah.
You got to learn as you go, and you got to make mistakes, and you know, it's good to be compassionate with yourself and just almost witness how stupid you are. Look back at and witness yourself as a third person and just go, you idiot. You don't have it all together either. So pull your head in, you know.
Yeah, totally, man. I think that's when you also just have a lot of compassion for other people and their story when you drop into that, because otherwise, it definitely doesn't come from the same place.
Yeah, I love the scripture. It always says, Jesus says, let he that is perfect throw the first stone. So it's like back in the day, they would literally stone people for doing something wrong. And Jesus said, well, if you're perfect, throw the first stone. And it's like, well, no one's going to throw a stone then because no one's perfect. So that parable from like the wisest man on earth is just like every time I'm about to say something, that scripture comes to mind, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to throw the first stone because I don't have any moral ground to stand on. So I'll shut up,
It's interesting. I think there's a fine line though, because when we're talking about like perfection and releasing judgment, and also speaking our truth, like we almost have to, like if that's something that we want to be striving towards, then like this level of perfection that we have maybe for ourselves can prevent us from speaking our truth
fully.
But I think the line is very, like it's a thin line to know.
Well, it's good to have high standards for yourself, and you stick to the standards that you've made agreement with yourself, but you can't expect other people. And you have the right to judge yourself because it's you, but you don't have the right to judge what other people are doing. So I think it's fine to set high standards for yourself, but you can't expect everyone else to live up to them. And you can't judge people according to your standards. You can only judge yourself and leave the rest up to God, I believe. Yeah.
That's a great distinction, actually. That I think that is the line. It's kind of
quote the Bible again. I think it's actually a blessing that God says, you don't have to judge people. Leave that up to me. And that alleviates us of a lot of responsibility. And it takes that responsibility off our hands, and it can also save us looking like a hypocrite too. So I think that's a very loving thing that God has said. I want you to worry about yourself, but you don't worry about anyone else. And then you set your own standards and let other people go as they go. And that's it. Everyone has a right to choose their path. And it's not for us to decide whether that's right or wrong. We can give advice if they ask for it, but I don't think it's up to us to decide whether or not someone is living in accordance with the way we think life should be lived.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a level of like separation between like speaking your truth that might cast judgment on somebody else?
Well, I think it's just important to say, this is what I believe to be true. And that's completely different than saying, this is what I believe to be true. And if you are not living in accordance with this, then I think you're a piece of shit. No, they're two different things. You're allowed to say, this is what I believe, and this is what I believe the right way to live is. But it doesn't mean that you need to take that belief system upon yourself and start ridiculing and start to tear down the way people live differently. But you definitely have a right to express what you believe is your truth. And I think that's fine. And by you expressing your truth, if that almost offends or degrades someone else, I don't think that really has anything to do with you. I think offence is given. You know what I mean? So offence is taken, not given. Sorry. So you have to be prepared in life for people to have opinions that don't align with yours. And as someone giving their opinion, it's not your responsibility to sugarcoat everything so that other people don't get hurt. That's their responsibility to work out how they're going to deal with it, not yours.
Yeah, I feel like we've lost that understanding as a society, like especially with free speech and people getting cancelled and stuff like that. Like, but I think you sum that up really well. Like, to where, maybe there is some guidance in how to speak your truth, and also to focus on yourself.
It's like the left wing hating the right wing because they believe that there's a certain way to live, and then the right wing hating the left wing because they're not living in accordance with what they think is right. They're both ridiculing each other of doing the exact same thing. It's like, it's actually stupid. Like, I just think the world has completely lost the plot. It's almost like insanity now that someone would expect me, let's just say they identify as a chair. It's like, you may identify as a chair, and that's cool. That's completely your business. But don't make it my business to call you a chair. Like, you do as you please, but I don't have to agree to this nonsense. I will respectfully treat you as a human being, but I don't have to go out of my way and give you any special treatment. And if you expect the world to almost take a knee and bend to your every beck and call and demand, then you're delusional. So,
well, you're really just asking for the respect of anyone and everyone, and no one has to offer you that.
Exactly.
Respect comes from being respectable, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a very sensitive subject, but I believe nature has a way, and I believe living in accordance with nature is always the right way, irrespective of your political view. The flow of life likes to go in patterns, and I think if you live in accordance with those patterns, I believe life works for the better. But a lot of people, especially like modern-minded people, they think that they can do whatever they want, and you can do whatever you want, but like everything in life, doing whatever you want comes with a certain amount of consequences. And when you go against nature and the natural flow of energy, there's massive consequences. So everyone has freedom of choice, but I think not many people are aware of the consequences of freedom of choice. So becoming aware of what you're choosing and being completely okay with the consequences that may come, that's an enlightened individual.
Yeah, you touched on that recently in a video. You were talking about open relationships.
Yeah.
If you're happy to go there.
Yeah, of course.
And I think you just put it really well, like just highlighting that, your choices do come with responsibilities. And it's like an important distinction to make, because you can't, I think, to look at pleasure without a consequence is like another form of delusion.
Yeah, that's like complete stupidity. Like everything has consequence. It's like even not even on the sexual plane, but even on the physical plane, just having like food. Like if you just do what you want all the time with food, there's consequences to that too. And I think when you're a bit of a stoic individual, you understand that my desires will come and go, but my purpose is forever. So I'm going to choose things that align with my purpose rather than my urges. And when you start operating out of a mind that is pushed by discipline and a higher purpose, then I think your urges fade off, because you're not operating out of that base chakra where everything's about pleasure. You're operating more out of a spirit, and and you witness your desire, and you see it's there, and you acknowledge it, but it doesn't govern your existence like someone who is living almost like, I like to think of it like, it's almost like a primal life where you're just driven by eating, sleeping, and mating. I think, I think that lifestyle is for some people, but I think men with purpose, if they get caught up in that lifestyle, will suffer severely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really interesting to see that part of myself transform and almost like being in that, I guess, level of awareness where pleasure and comfort was how I saw the world. It was very hard to actually see another way of being. And so I think...
Same here, bro. Likewise. Most of us men have been most of our life on that path. And that's why I'm compassionate for myself and others going through it, because it's a constant choice to show up and live a life of purpose rather than live a life of pleasure. So hats off to people that recognise that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I guess it's not to say that anyone's doing it better, but it's, I think, just fascinating for me that a lot of these ideas that we're talking about and locking into a set of values so that you don't go off course, like, is something that we're only really finding again now in the 21st century. And
we're finding it now because the way things are going aren't working. So you see it now. There's men without a moral code aren't happy, and that's just as simple as that. And I believe happiness is different to fun, and I think it takes a certain level of awareness to distinguish that difference, because it's fun to do all the immoral things. It's fun to follow your desires to their end, but it doesn't bring happiness. So I think it's very important to distinguish happiness and fulfillment from fun and pleasure. And I believe happiness is a lingering feeling. It's a disposition. Like, you can say, oh, he's such a happy guy, whereas fun comes and goes very quickly. And I believe men who chase fun don't necessarily ever hit their peak potential. Like, I don't think anyone at your funeral is ever going to talk about the fun you had. I think what's important, I hope that when I die, I like the approach of the men of old and the Stoics that would get completely obsessed with the legacy they would leave behind and how they would be remembered. And I think that is that's such an amazing thing, because people could argue that, they're not living in the present, they're so worried about how they're going to be remembered. But I think it's so amazing that you can completely abandon the happiness and the fun in the present moment in order to be known as a man of principle or of a man of honour, and like be completely respected long after you're gone. And I believe, all of us, we all go to dust at some point, and millions of people come and go, and we all die. But it's amazing to distinguish yourself by some form of character,
No, definitely.
Yeah.
I think what came up when you were saying that is like we would actually struggle to be present without a vision or a code to live by.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've realised in my own life, is that like without something to like hone in on, or a north star to like a direction to go in, then when you're trying to live presently, you're kind of just like flapping in the wind. You're not actually responding in the way that you would want to in foresight.
No, fully. It's important to be living in the moment, completely in the moment, but also with a direction in mind. So I believe it's like you get up in the morning, you want to be the fittest, strongest, smartest, ultimate potential of yourself. So you set up activities that are going to help you to become that person, and while you're in those activities, be completely present. So it's like you know where you're going, and you set up the day with activities and tasks that are going to get you there. But while you're doing those things, just be completely in them, and don't be thinking about the future, and the next day comes and you do the same thing. So it's like you're working towards something and you're moving in a direction while completely being surrendered to the present moment and fully enjoying life in all its beauty. And that's why I think it's important to plan days where you move forward, and then also you plan days and you surrender to the moment where you have no plans and you go to a waterfall with your mates, or you go to the beach or just surf, and you forget about moving in a forward direction because you've done that 5 days of the week. And then you have your Sabbath and you just allow yourself to just be in pure spirit. And I feel like that's a nice balance. That's what works for me,
Yeah, I've always liked that, like the Sunday, just every week. It's just routine.
Yeah, man.
It's cool.
That's what life is. It's like, I love having things to look forward to during the week, like milestones, and I also love days with nothing booked in, which allow for the unknown. So it's such a balance of the masculine and feminine, having foresight while having presence, and that's something I reckon we're all trying to master.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think it's so easy to like get almost like caught up in what can be distractions if you're trying to live presently without a foresight. You can really just fall into it's quite a paradox.
Yeah.
It's
I don't believe you need to be, how do I say this without being rude? Like, I love listening to like Ram Dass, but at the same time, I don't aspire to be anything like him. I don't believe laying there in the present moment and contemplating the secrets of the universe on psychedelics for months on end is the type of thing that I want to choose. But I love like Nipsey Hussle. That's why I got him on the wall, because it's like I want to do things in life and I want to move through them with presence, but I don't want to be so caught up in the present moment that everything is just now. And for some people that feels right. So for me, what I try and do is I try and take like some of the beautiful things that I read in Ram Dass' book, but then I also try and get stuff from like Nipsey Hussle, and I want to grind and I want to accomplish things and I want to get things for my family. But at the same time, I also recognize the need for presence and the need to enjoy those as they arise. So that's why I don't think it's very important not to put anyone on a pedestal, so to speak, but recognize that everyone has something to offer. And you take what you want from each person and combine that into your own little package and make it work for you with your own twist on it. But yeah, everyone chooses their life path, don't they?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about. I feel like I'm always reminding myself that like everyone does have their path and their purpose, and it's often a distraction from me and where I'm going when I'm like thinking about other people and where they fit into the equation. But yeah, I think when we can really look at that, it also takes the pressure off like needing to help people even, and to feel like you need to like change something.
That's your ego. You're thinking that you're gonna save people, and you're not recognizing that you may be robbing them of the very thing or the very road that they need to go down. So potentially by you pulling them out of something that you perceive is bad could be the very thing that will awaken them to their true essence. So it's a very fine line.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexity to that.
Yeah. I just think, man, just do as you do. If you contemplate too much on the existence of life, and this is where I was going with like Ram Dass and stuff like that, when I get too contemplative and when I get too reflective on life, you do realise that there's no point in doing anything. It's like you make your bed and you unmake it and you sleep in it, it's all messy again. You wash your clothes, they get dirty. You eat healthy, your health deteriorates anyway and you die. And life is such a paradox like that. There's no point to everything, but there is. So it's like for me, I just realise I can't be stuck in that contemplative, present moment type of energy. Even though nothing matters, I still feel it's beneficial for me to get up and go and get it regardless. So, there's a time to reflect and there's a time just to witness the nonsense and how stupid it is to do anything but just doing it anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny one, man.
It's pretty cooked, but yeah.
I last had that thought when I was flying back from Melbourne, just looking out of the plane window, just like nothing matters.
I always get that in the plane.
But everything matters at the same time.
It's like you work your whole life to save up for one of those tiny little boxes that you see from the plane, and you're like, that is such a sad existence to spend all of your beautiful time on this earth to get one of those little brick things, those minuscule, stupid little homes that you pay off for the rest of your life. But at the same time, man, it makes you feel good having your own place to provide a roof over your head for yourself and your family. So as stupid, as insignificant as it may seem, and as pointless as it may be, it's still good. You know what I mean? It's still good.
Yeah. I think like one of the best things that I heard, which it's a podcaster that I've been following for a while, Soul of Jarrett.
Oh, that guy's funny. He's cool.
Yeah. But he just said like the most spiritual thing you can do is to be human. Like, because you can get caught up in the whole nothing matters. What are we doing this for? But I think what we're doing it for is that we're at this point in time, we're human in this body, living a human life, and that's.
I got something great from him too. I think he said like something to do with the universe and manifestation, and he said something like, man, I don't want to get into manifestation. It's almost like manipulation. It's like you're trying to use ... to get X, Y, Z. And I'm like, it's actually so true. What about just like, just doing whatever and just trusting, not like having some scientific method to get everything that you want, but just doing life, and that's enough, and just let it all unfold as it wants to. And there was something so true about that, and I believe that the surrender and just the letting go of trying to predict and control outcomes is when life just gets so beautiful. And you find it even on when you go on a big night out, the funnest ones are always the ones that just had no plan. It's because you didn't have any perceived idea of how it might go. You just completely let it unfold hour after hour, and it was perfect. And oftentimes we forget as we get older how to get back into those states, you know, of just being a human and just letting it flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Crazy, man.
That's what we need more of. Yeah, I know. But yeah, that's what I was saying before. I try have days like that, and then I also try and have days where there's a checklist and things have to get done, because I know when things get done, then I create more space to be in that unknown. But when you neglect your responsibilities, they just pile up, and then it becomes a life of avoidance where when you do what you have to do and you have those checklist days, you create space and you create room for the unknown, because you have taken care of everything, and now there's mental space. But if you don't take care of them, then you just avoid, and I think that's when the drugs and the alcohol come in.
That's such a good distinction, eh?
Yeah, right.
Huge. Amazing, man. Always good chats.
Yeah, no, it was really good, bro.
Yeah. What have you been focusing on at the moment? You've been reading
I've been reading 2 books. I've been reading The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. That's been amazing. And it's got a quote on the first page. I might have told you boys, it blew my mind. It said, like, the goal is not to create art, but to be in that state where creating art is inevitable. And that like hit me so hard, because I just realised that if I can bring myself back into that flow state and that presence and that good vibration inside, everything I touch is going to turn to gold anyway. Don't worry about turning things into gold, or don't worry about creating magic. Just feel the magic, feel everything around you, get in that flow, and it's impossible for magic not to happen when you're in that. And that for me was like so freeing. As soon as I heard that, I just said, oh, yes, thank you. And this week I've had low energy, but I've been making stuff happen, and I've been creating opportunities and been having massive breakthroughs in myself, and actually experiencing almost what abundance feels like for the first time in a long time, and it feels amazing. Yeah.
Oh, that's great, man.
Yeah, bro. What about you?
Oh, I feel like I'm always like integrating something, hey?
It's a good word, integrating.
Yeah. Like
Software updates.
Just a continuous process of processing. Like, yeah, I haven't really, haven't been reading a whole lot recently. I've just been like listening to a lot of like podcasts.
Yeah.
And I guess like the biggest theme for me has just been around like judgment and perfectionism, which we kind of like touched on before. But yeah, I think that's just been such a recurring theme for me, and it just it's like the more I circle back to it, it really just feels like it's something that we are here to transcend on some level, like because everything changes like once everyone else feels the sensitivity to the judgment that they're actually, experiencing or projecting, like everything changes.
Yeah,
and
man.
I notice that in my day-to-day, like so clearly. It's like if I'm like switched on and aware of where my mind's going, and I can kind of wire my brain. I think you put it so perfectly in your book, which was like giving a compliment just changes your whole, like if you're thinking, how can I compliment this person? It just takes you out of a level of judgment. But I feel that polarization, like, so I felt that so heavily, even for myself recently. So it's been really cool to...
You're never going to get to a point where you don't judge people.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, and I think it's cool if you can just be like, you know what? The way I'm wired is to judge, but consciously I'm going to choose to recognize that, and then I'm going to override that program with love. And then you just go... Instead of going into the emotion too much, you just witness it. You go, oh, I just judged you then. And then you go, but that's all right. I see the real you. I'm also full of flaws. I'd like to send you some love. And then you just neutralize that and you move on. You don't have to try and get to some point where you're just like, I don't judge anyone. Because maybe some people have, maybe Buddha, maybe Jesus, but the rest of us, I think you can hold yourself to a high standard, which is achievable, and that's to just recognize and witness it, and then pull yourself back and act accordingly to the person that you'd like to be.
Yeah. I think that there's probably like a distinction to make, which is, I think like judgment kind of holds this vibration, like just the word. But I would say, like, we can't live a life without discernment, which is like, I guess, the extension of judgment. So we need to be able to discern and like know what's good for us and what's not, and what people we should surround ourselves with.
Yeah, there's a difference with discernment and judgment. Like if you've got young kids and you love your kids and you're trying to protect their mind from seeing garbage, and you see someone and you can tell that they're not in a good place to be around your kids, that's not judgment, that's discernment, where you say, I've used my eyes, ears and intuition based off what I can see you represent, and I've made a clear decision that I don't deem you worthy to be feeding my kids information. And I believe you have every right, and that's also judgment in a way, is how you survive, because you're judging conditions, whether or not you like to do it on the physical plane, on the emotional plane, everything. Every time you get in your car, you have to judge distance, you have to judge when you're going to break everything. And don't want to be going down the path of deciding who's morally right or wrong every day and put yourself on some pedestal. But at the same time, there is a basic level of judgment that you need to kind of get through life at the same time. And And that's a healthy relationship with judgment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I definitely feel that. And I think that's probably the more like, I guess like that is the distinction. I think for me, it's just been interesting because I think what I've been practicing for a long time now has been like discernment, but then not getting to a place where, or trying to find the unity rather than the separation. And it is just like a hard thing to really put into words, but I think you can discern from what is good for you and what is not, but also you can see where that person or this circumstance has its place in the world.
Yeah, there's a difference between witnessing behaviour and judging behaviour.
Yeah.
You know, you can witness something horrific and you're like, you know what, that's enough, I'm out of here. You don't need to judge it, but you've witnessed it and you've recognised that it's not nice. You pull yourself away from that. So that's witnessing versus judging, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I think as humans, we also then hold on to, if we make that judgment, that that's who that person is. Yeah. So it's like, it's
a constant learning, man. It will never end. Yeah.
Yeah. That's been such a big theme for me. I keep coming back to it, but it's been liberating.
Keep coming back to it until you don't feel like you need to come back to it anymore.
Yeah. No, totally.
Sometimes it's just like reading a page in a book that you can't understand, and you might have to keep reading that same page, and then one day it just clicks and you go, I'm going to turn to the next page now. Not going to worry about that. Doesn't mean you won't come back to it and visit again. But you just move on.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Let go. I've had to do it so many times in life where you have to come to the realisation. I'm like, no matter how many times I logically think about this, I've come to the conclusion that I'm never going to understand why I did or why someone else did that. And that's okay. Just be okay with not knowing why. And oftentimes when you surrender to that and just go, you know what, it's cool if I never know the answer to this, the answer appears. It's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it is really interesting.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Always
Awesome,
learn.
man. Cool. Did you want to plug your workshop that you got coming up?
Oh, yeah, actually, that's a good idea. September 16th, I got a workshop on high vibe living. And so it's like, we're going to do like how to recognize when you're in that sweet spot, what your body feels like when your soul is giving you feedback that you're doing what you're meant to be doing, and how to maintain those states of vibration for long enough to get a breakthrough. Because I believe a lot of people get themselves in a really good state, but it might only be for half an hour or an hour. But I have experienced in my own life that the secret to breaking through anything or getting through to those next levels is maintaining those states for like a certain period of time. And then when you can maintain those states for long enough, they become like your demeanor and they almost become your personality. And then when they become your personality, that's when you've changed your personal reality. And that's what the workshop is going to do. It's going to help you to identify, tune in, drop in, and then recognize and maintain a high vibrational state of living. Yeah.
Epic, man.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
Well said too.
Yeah, should be good.
So where can the listeners find that? Have you got it on your website?
Yeah, so if you click on our Insta, our daily purpose _ or my Insta, Scott D McIntosh _ the link in the bio on both of them has a link to an Eventbrite, and you can buy a ticket. I think the ticket is $55 for 2 hours. So pretty fair and affordable, I think.
Yeah.
And it's like my last 5 years of work, I guess, put into 2 hours, simplified. So it should be good.
Yeah, I think, is that a Saturday?
Yeah, it's a Saturday, yeah.
I think that's like right before I go to England.
Oh, sick.
So I'm going to try and make that and then just be on a wave.
Yeah. I think it's come at perfect timing because I think the last week and a half I've been hitting feelings and realizations that I never have. So right up until that day of the workshop, I'm going to be putting in new stuff. So yeah, I'm on a bit of a journey until we get there, but it's really good. It feels good. Yeah, so hopefully we fill out. Yeah, but if not, and we have a small group, even better. It's just more focused attention, you know. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Epic, dude.
Thanks, Kevo. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
No worries.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up.
Get to bed.
Yeah, sounds
Thanks,
good.
fella.
Legend.
Thanks, fella.
Thank you, man. Amazing.
Tired tonight.